presentation on the park. So now that we've gone through it 1 year, we want to talk a little bit. We have some very special guests on the panel today to share their experiences, because these are the folks that lived through it and can tell you a little bit about the experience. Afterwards, we're going to move into discussion of how to interpret those reports that will be coming out before winter break. So those will be coming home to you, and you'll have a chance to see what the reports look like, because they are very different from our NJAS reports. And then ask any questions. We'll talk about the changes for this year, and any questions that you have, we will answer. But I'd like to start just introducing our group here tonight. We have 2 teachers that administered the test last year. We have Mrs. Melina, who is a 3rd grade teacher, so she administered through our first testers, and we have Mrs. Forte, who administered both the algebra as well as 8th grade math. Then we have some students that took the tests this last year. We have Sophia, we have Amy, and we have Savannah. 2 of our test coordinators, Mrs. Theodoropoulos and Mr. Scala, they actually organized and coordinated for the district to get all of that back end ready so that the students could take all of these assessments using the technology and the computers. So I'm going to start out with our teachers just to share a little bit about their experiences, and then we're going to hear from our students and our coordinators.
Okay, so actually last year wasn't actually the algebra. I had some geometry students taking 8th grade geometry, and then also regular 8th grade math students taking it as well. I actually also had the opportunity to run the pilot program. So we did the pilot testing, so going into it, we kind of already had an idea because to practice the tools, and so many parents, I was getting emails about are they going to know how to use the tools, and that was the biggest concern. To be completely honest, I mean, again, your children are so tech savvy, they actually, when we were going through and kind of learning those tools, they were teaching us about them. Oh, look, if you go over here, you can highlight the text, and oh, if you go over here, there's a magnifying glass in case you need to see something there. So they were really, really savvy with that sort of stuff. Technology, as much as everyone was so up in arms about that being an issue, we did not really see that on test day. There were a couple of issues with maybe sometimes just the system itself would shut down and they'd have to log off and re-log back in. But within a matter of minutes or seconds, they were back up and running, and it saved the work that they had. We really didn't run into any of those problems. As far as the test questions, in the middle school, I know that we ran just a workshop for the teachers, kind of prepping them and saying what to incorporate in your classrooms as far as different types of questions. It's no longer multiple choice, free response, extended constructive response like NJAS. So now we've got things like multiple response, where it looks like a multiple choice question, but you can select multiple answers. So it's just kind of getting everybody used to that, putting those things on our tests. Obviously, it's not online tests that we're doing in our classrooms, but giving them a multiple response question where they could circle more than one answer choice, not just A, B, C, or D. Maybe the answers are A, B, and D. So all of those things kind of happen within our classrooms to prepare the kids. And again, I don't know if perhaps they're just way more calm, cool, and collected, or maybe they just don't have as much anxiety over it as we do. But on test day, we didn't really see much anxiety from them. They went in, they took their tests, and as far as things went, as the results are coming back, we're seeing that things went well.
As far as I agree with the students didn't feel much anxiety, and as far as from a teacher perspective, I felt we had a lot of support. Whenever something did happen, there were other administrators available at all times to come and help us when we felt that something wasn't working at the right time. But again, the kids were very prepared. I felt they knew how to use the tools, and they had plenty of opportunity for typing before, so I felt that it went well.
Okay, I believe that children should take the park. You may be thinking the park has too many cons, but let me tell you why children should take the park. The park is an opportunity to show what you have learned. Everything my teacher taught me was on the test. If you listened during class, you would know what to do on the questions. The park helps increase stamina. For example, if you were getting up every 20 seconds for a drink, you would not be focused when you get back. Students that build their stamina and work hard will do well on the park. Students are testing well. Students may get bored of working on paper, but for the park, you are doing almost everything on the computer. This is why I think students should take the park.
The third graders, they, in their classrooms last year, after the test, went through it and kind of analyzed what they thought that. That's kind of the response to it. Right?
So I took the park as a 7th grader, and it wasn't really that hard. The only problem that I really had was like they gave us a lot of time because it was our first year. So most of the time you had, you just like sit there because you like if you finished early, and then when you were done, like after the NJS, sometimes when you were all done, your teacher would like play a movie, which was my favorite part. But the part you couldn't do that, so that was the downside. The actual test wasn't as hard as it was like thought to be, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
When we took the park last year, there were some things like that were some good things that I liked and some bad things that like could be fixed. So when they had the idea of wearing headphones, that was really good because like if something happened, we couldn't hear, we could still focus on the test. Like not a bad thing happened, but like if somebody knocked on the door or something, we couldn't hear it, so we still focused on the test. And also our room, we had a lot of kids in it last year. So when we took the park, it would be crowded. So the teacher sent some kids to other rooms. So it made it better for us to like learn and be able to do the park. Also, something I really liked was they gave us like a good amount of time to finish all the questions. The test is like pretty good. And last year, for like if we were having a hard time, our teacher let us make posters around the room to make us to like boost our confidence. And like some things, like sometimes when I would try to get in, I would have to try like more than once to get in, so it was a little frustrating, but they fixed that after a while. And like some things, like I just liked how the teacher worked a lot and how on all the questions that would be in the park. So she spent more time on that and helping us like get better on the questions that would be on the park. And so the park, it wasn't really that bad last year, so I kind of liked it, and I think they should definitely keep on doing it throughout the years.
So Ed and I, thank you, keep them all our hands there. I'm the testing coordinator. My job is to make sure that we have all the groupings on the computer, and I don't know if you know about NJS, but that was 1,000 times easier than taking out the booklets, putting on the labels, the seals, and this and that, so it's much easier to do it on the computer. Our biggest job was to reassure the teachers and know that they were in a good place so they could reassure the students, making sure we had the technology ready, that the students were exposed to the format, to the tools, they got a chance to practice in the classroom, and just feel good about it and have a good testing experience. I was in every class, and I can tell you I was amazed by how quickly the students acclimated to it. Having seen them take the New Jersey Ask 2, it was a lot less painful because there were a lot less questions in each section, where in the past you would have the Ask, which could be 36 to 40 questions. This was maximum at 11. The students really liked the tools, they liked highlighting, they liked magnifying, they liked that they could go back and choose a selection and just look at that. And the highlighter, I think, was a big thing. The online tools, I was really proud of the teachers. The biggest part was then they just had to hit start and end. I could run reports and see where everyone is. Sometimes kids would get kicked out and I'd say, okay, you know, all we have to do is put the password and they went back in. So for our first year, for what we put into place and how it went, I was really pleased. I was pleased by the teachers. I was always proud of the students as how well they did. So for my end of it, just seeing the background and getting everything set up, it was obviously so much easier doing it with the technology and having that in front of you. And I could see from any computer if there was a student that got kicked out or if there were any issues. So I was glad to say there weren't as many issues that I was afraid of, and it went well. So it was a good experience. So I was very proud of everyone. So thank you.
I'm trying to come up with a way to describe what it looks like, I guess, as a teacher, because what Tina was saying is that one of our biggest concerns was relaxing the teachers, because the teachers are the faces in the classroom. So if you have 20 to 25 children looking at you, you have to look calm, even though this is brand new. And I kind of think about when you buy a new car, and you get into the car the first time, and you go, how do I turn on the radio? And you know, you've turned on the radio before, but it just looks a little different. And you sit there and you start clicking it, and then you realize, oh, it's the one that says power. And then you hit it, and you're like, oh, that was it. And that's kind of what it was like to take the park. A lot of times teachers would call us and we'd go down and say, well, it says an error. And I said, what does it say? And they said, it says to click here. And I would say, then click there. And they would go, they would click it, and then everything would be fine. It's the same thing like the radio, just no, you can. We kept saying like, even if you click it, it won't blow up, it'll be okay. But getting them, the more the teachers were relaxed, the more the students were relaxed. We also worked a lot with technology, because one of the days we had, I think a few days, we had snow days, so then we had half days. So we had to make sure that we had enough of the technology. All the computers, they were all plugged in, so they had a full charge. If they didn't, we had to make it kind of like a spider web in the classrooms, that the chargers were all over. But the students, the vibe I always got from the teachers afterwards, I said, how'd they do? Like, well, the kids did fine. I was a wreck, but the kids did fine. Because they're just stressed over this new way in which the information is being rolled out. So we did a lot of training throughout the year, but like I said, you get into that car the first time, you're like, okay, what do I have to do? Just push it, and then you're fine. And so what Tina said, we had, as being the site coordinators, we had our master list, and we could see every student. So if a student got kicked out, that was fine. We just reset them, and then they went back in, we told the classroom. So it went a lot easier. One of the benefits I like of ARC over the NJS is that on the NJS you have to touch, as the coordinators, every single book, count every single book 2 times a day, put the stickers on every single book. I can't tell you how many paper cuts at the end of a month of NJS testing, probably 6 out of my 10 fingers had paper cuts and Band-Aids on them because of all the books. But it was an amazing program. The students were so comfortable with it through the education that they got through all year in computers, and so this wasn't new to them. They came to it, and this was just game time for them. It all went rather smoothly. We were happy after, but we also took it upon ourselves to write down, these are the things that we think we need to work on for next year. This would work better, and we're definitely going to be implementing those things.
Any questions for any of our panel? How many of your own students came home and told you about the experience? Did they tell you a little bit about it when you came home? I'm sure they had things to say then, but yes, we definitely learned a lot from the experience. I'm going to go over some of the things that we did learn, things that went really well for us, and things that we've changed to make it go even smoother. But I really want to thank all of our panel members for coming and sharing their experiences, and then we'll be hitting it hard this April again, so thank you guys. You're free to go out so we can have some things that we can see. Yes, we please give a thank you to all of our panel. So some things that we did learn. The Wi-Fi was not a major issue. However, only certain rooms were able to access it easily. So what we did is we first of all worked on the Wi-Fi for Valley View to make sure that we had no dead spots for this year. Spent a lot of time and energy upping the Wi-Fi in that building. And then we also did in Riverview and Lakeview, but purchased portable hotspots that we can move around on a cart so that we can make sure that a full classroom of students can access the internet at the same time, because we're testing an entire grade level at the same time. Some school districts have like a third grade class rotating through, so not all third graders are taking it on the same day or at the same time. However, we made the decision that we would test all students in that grade level at the same time. To do that, we needed to make sure that our Wi-Fi was up and running and was strong enough to handle all of those students, especially in Lakeview when we have so many students per grade. The students were capable, as all of our panel members said. We really didn't find them having difficulty with the actual use of the technology, but they were pretty adept at using those tools and really taught us quite a bit about those tools as well. The math sections contained 20 questions or less. So we learned that although they were all word problems, there weren't as many as had been in the past, where students were sort of racing against the clock to make sure that they read and completed all of the math problems. There were fewer problems, but each problem had more to it. So there would be between 11 and 20 questions per section, depending on the grade level, and that way they asked more than one thing about a problem. So students could spend more time concentrating on one individual problem from different angles rather than 40 problems, individual problems. We found that what the students did need to focus on was more work on composing at the computer. So what was unique for them was actually sitting down and conducting or creating their first draft at the computer. So for the most part, they had not been thinking through a written response at the same time that they were typing it. Now we know as adults in our workspace, that's what we do. We don't draft it on paper and then go to the computer and type it. So we're really trying to spend more time in the content areas, as well as adding an extra computer class for 2nd and 3rd grade, so that they had twice a week that go into computers to make sure they're getting that opportunity to learn to compose on the computers at the same time. We found that the middle school students could last much longer, so that although we had planned for a week for each grade level, they could knock off that test much faster and probably within 3 days, because it really was only a couple of hours, and as Hayden was mentioning, that they finished well before the time that was allotted, and so there was a lot of downtime. And it would be better just to go ahead and do 2 tests in a day and get it done in 2 or 3 days instead of dragging it out. So we did learn that, and the middle school, the second round, did condense the testing time down to 3 days. The elementary, we found that some of the sections we could combine, like we could do a written response and a math section, but they couldn't do 2 hours worth of math. That was too much. So we did spread theirs out still within a week. They did not have difficulty finishing in the allotted time. Even students who had extended time, most of them finished within the original time for all students. So really there was quite a bit of time available. Our refusal numbers were pretty low in all the grades except for 8th grade. The state participation rate is 95%. That's what we're supposed to meet for federal as well as state guidelines. And our 8th grade was at 88%. So we have to look a little bit about how the timing of the 8th grade assessment and how to get more of those students taking that assessment. At this point, the high school was not using that data, so some felt they did not want to take that, and they were a little confused if they were in advanced math or regular math, how that was going to affect them in high school. However, we know now down the road that this may be one piece of the information for placement in high school. The PARCC assessment covers every single standard. So whereas NJ asked sample standards, and you kind of guessed at which standards might be on the test, there was a question that addressed every single standard. So in the written responses, it was graded on both read and writing. So they didn't read a passage and answer questions and then write an essay. They had to read and write an essay about what they just read. So they tried to combine those skills all into one test instead of just reading comprehension and then just writing. But every standard was tested. And PARC is not an assessment that you can teach to the test, because this particular test tests every single standard. So every standard that you're supposed to do in 5th grade, you're supposed to cover in class, and that's what's on the test. So in the past, some standardized tests you can sort of teach students strategies, but this is really just teaching them how to actually apply those particular standards to work. So you can review, just like you would before any test, you can review like 5th grade material before the test, but there's really no way to prepare for PARC, except for do the standards you're supposed to in that grade level. So changes. The test administration this year has been reduced. Last year it was 2 weeks, 1 week in early spring, like around March, and then 1 in May. And they've changed that to be just 1 week. So all of the testing will take place, will start for us the week after spring break. So we'll start the Tuesday we come back from spring break, and it goes till the first week of May. Once we have the actual number of tests and minutes on each test, then we'll roll out to all the families which week each grade level will be testing. The reduction in the number of math tests. They did take out some of the math tests because they felt that they were redundant in testing the same skills multiple times. So they reduced some of those math tests. Our testing window is April 12th through May 6th. We're going to start with 8th grade. That's one of our strategies. We're going to do it earlier for 8th grade because they also have high school preparation, some placement tests. We want to have 8th grade do it as early as possible so that they're not burned out before they start doing all their high school placements. And next year, the 2016 scores will come in much earlier, we're told. July, they're supposed to come in next year. So right now, as you know, we have not received our individual student scores yet. But next year, we're supposed to get them in July. Now, when you came in, you picked up a handout that there was a color handout and it was interpreting the scores. We'll go over how to read that report. Between now and December 12th, the districts are going to receive your students' individual reports in the mail. Once we receive those, then we're going to analyze them at the school level and mail them out to the families before winter break. When it comes to you, it's going to look like this, very different from the NJAS scores. All of the boxes that you see on both the front page and the back page are all going to be on the front page of the actual report. So we'll have your student's name at the top and the grade level, and then we'll break down all of these pieces of information about English language arts as well as math, and the details of individual points as well as scale score for each area. So the first thing you will notice is a yellow box. That will indicate to you how your child did on that particular test. So this is an English language arts test. So this student performed at a level 3. There are 5 levels. So it starts out at level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is the highest. On the back there is an indication of what is each of these levels. Below the box, it will also indicate what your child's actual scale score was. So at level 3, this child was a 739. It lets you know that students that are in the 4 and 5 range are considered proficient. So in the past, we only had 3 levels. We had 1 was partially, 2 was proficient, and then we had advanced proficient. Now you have 5 levels. Proficient is 4, and exceeding expectations is level 5. So this student, based on this assessment, did not meet proficiency. The color graph gives you an idea of what the range of scores are. On the NJAS, it was 200 to 300. This test is from 650 to 850. They did that to try to scale the scores more aligned to the NAEP as well as SATs, ACTs, giving it more in line with how those particular tests are curved, and this has a similar bell curve to it as well. You're looking for a score of 750 to be proficient. 800 and above is exceeding expectations. Below the colored box, you're also going to find out how your child did compared to those students in your school, in the district, which will make a difference. Will be applicable for elementary. For middle school, we just have one school. But it will be how they did compared to other students in the district, students in the state, and then students, the other state students. So everybody who took that assessment. There were approximately about just under 700,000 students that took the test at each grade level. So that last score under Park average would be how your students scored. You can compare that to how they did across the nation. On the back, you're going to see a box that actually breaks out reading and writing. In the past, our English language arts score were combined to one score, but it breaks it out to give you your raw score in each of the areas, as well as in specific areas. So if you look at under reading, it tells you your score for reading, and then next to it says average of students just meeting expectations. So that means to be proficient, just proficient level, like the bottom of the fours, but exactly at the lowest part of being a 4, they had a raw score of 50. So that gave you an idea that this student was 4 or 6 points below the raw, just making proficiency, the raw score. The district average was 48, the school average was 52, and the state was 45. So then it could give you an idea of where your child fits. And the same is for writing. For reading, it's going to break it out into smaller categories, subcategories of literary text, informational text, and vocabulary. For writing, it's going to be written expression, knowledge, and use of conventions. The same thing will be true of math, except they're going to break it into 4 areas. The 4 areas it's not on this sheet, but the 4 areas for math are major content, and each of your children's teachers at the beginning of the year, we gave them a map of exactly how much emphasis in that grade level was on each topic. And then the other topics should be spent less time, because each grade level has a major focus, like in 5th grade they have fractions, as opposed to 3rd grade multiplication. So it gives them an idea of the focus for the grade level. You also will get a score of how they did in misses. If you see a discrepancy from either your NJS scores or what you're seeing them doing and bringing home in class, it's best to talk with your teacher to see which is more accurate. It may have been that 6 months ago this was a weakness for them, and now they've caught up in our grade level. It may be a continued weakness for them, and you need to continue to address that. If it was a strength 6 months ago, you could just ask, if you're seeing that in their homework coming home and their assessments in class, is it still a strength? So really the best thing to do with this assessment is to keep it in perspective that yes, it was 6 months ago, but also how are they doing now in class, and compare and see, do you see discrepancies between it, and ask your teacher if one or the other is more accurate. At this point, we're not, to answer your question, we're not using it for any placement in the district. However, in the future, we may. So don't worry about the scores that come back, that somehow this is going to get them into a program or keep them out of a program. We do not use this for expo, basic skills, advanced math, advanced language arts. We don't use it for any of those things at this point, especially the first year, because this is a baseline for us. It's actually giving us an idea of where we're at. And you have to compare yourself to others. It's one thing to do an assessment in-house and say, look how great we're doing, and then find out maybe we're not doing as good as we thought. We do need to look at other outside sources and take it for that, just for that purpose. How are we doing compared to other students that your children will be competing with in high school and in college? Just to make sure that we're keeping up with where the standard is, and that your child will not have, we are neglectful in offering all the opportunities to your children that other school districts are giving their children. If your child was proficient on NJS last year or the year before, and you find that they're not proficient on this, again, I would go back to your teacher and ask which they think is accurate. Remember, the bar is raised, so it is possible. And it may be likely that some of the proficiencies that you were at with NJS are not the same they're going to see with Park. The scale is very different. Before it was only 100 points, now it's 200 points. It's really hard to put them side by side and compare them individually with each other. So we use this as a baseline and just try to take it for that and ask your teacher what they think about it, if they think your child is doing well or if there's certain areas they need to work on. So what's next? I mentioned a few times. So by December 12th, we're supposed to get the individual test scores. Once we do that, we're going to be working with the schools to analyze not only your child's information, but also the whole schools, the grade levels, to see are there things we need to do for the individual student, as well as are there any curricular changes that we need to make. Are there certain skills that we need to be reinforcing more than we are if we see patterns? After seeing your child's report, so when you get it home, it will be mailed. When you receive it, look at it, go over it, and if you have any questions at all, you contact me, contact your building administrators, the teachers. We've been going through and training them on how to read the reports as well, because this is all new for them. So they should be able to answer any questions, but please just call. If there's any question at all, we'll be happy to answer that. And on January 6th, before our next PASS meeting, so once you actually get your report in your hand, and then you have questions about it, I'm going to be here half an hour before the next meeting. I can answer questions individually then, but you can just call me or email me, and I'd be glad to answer any questions of what the numbers mean for you. The next PASS meeting that we have is on struggling to how strategies to help struggling learners. So this is students that everything from maybe might have something like dyslexia, but also just struggling. They're on grade level, but are struggling a little bit with reading or with math. We're going to have strategies and different groups. It's a combination working with our CPAC group, parent group, and organizing some opportunities for you to hear from some experts in the area for some strategies. On this presentation, it will be on the website, and after the presentation, there are a number of resources. Probably the best one is understandthescore.org, but you can look, they're all on here. There's a video, there's more of these reports. There's several resources that are there that you can look back up or share with your friends if they're wondering about the score reports. So I'm going to turn this over to questions from you. So if your friends, your neighbors, anybody has questions about these reports, now you guys are the experts, right? They can ask you. I'll take your names and I'll put them on there. No, just tell them to ask the schools, anybody, a teacher. There's a lot of information on here, way more information than we've ever had before. If your neighbors, your friends are thinking they're wondering if their child should take the test, there's a lot of really useful information. I'm really hoping that they all do take that opportunity, because it doesn't hurt them. But we could get some information that may really help them. Someone might slide through the cracks, and we may not catch it. Yes? They'll be mailed home before we are ready. Mailed home. Yes. So look for it in the mail. We're supposed to be getting the next before December 12th, so another week. Well, thank you. I'll hang out here a while if you have any individual questions. If not, there's cookies, water, and thank you guys for coming.